When I opened the front gate that afternoon, I thought I was losing my mind. There, standing on my porch with a broom in her hand and slippers on her feet, was my sister-in-law, smiling like she belonged there. "Welcome home," she said softly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And for a moment, I actually looked behind me to check if maybe I had walked into the wrong house. But no, the smell of my jasmine plant, the old brass nameplate that still read the cons. This was my house, my home, only apparently not anymore. Before that day, my life was ordinary, the kind of ordinary that makes you believe nothing could ever go wrong. My husband, Rashid, was a steady man, or at least he pretended to be. He was quiet, methodical, the kind who'd sip tea while reading the newspaper cover to cover. We'd been married 14 years, and though we had our share of dull routines, I thought dull was safe. We lived in a modest, two-story house on the edge of Lahore, the kind with iron balcony grills, faded curtains, and the smell of coriander from the kitchen every morning. I loved that house more than I could ever explain. It wasn't fancy, but every wall carried our fingerprints, from the paint we chose together to the nail marks where I'd hung family photos. I used to think a home could anchor a marriage, that as long as the walls stood firm, so would we. How naive I was. Rashid worked with his younger brother, Adnan, in a small property business. The two were close, painfully close if you asked me. Rashid always defended Adnan, even when his recklessness cost us money. "He's just young," he'd say, though Adnan was only 3 years younger. Adnan's wife, Sanaa, was complicated, beautiful, confident, and always dressed like she was heading somewhere more important than your living room. I never quite trusted her. There was something in her eyes, a mix of calculation and charm. The kind of woman who knew exactly how much power she had. Still, I try to keep the peace. Family is family, I told myself. And in our culture, family isn't something you distance from. It's something you endure. That morning, the one that led to the chaos, had started quietly. Rashid left early, claiming he needed to sort out paperwork with Adnan. I remember thinking he'd been gone more often lately, and when I asked, he'd snap, "Business is growing, Amina. That's a good thing." I didn't argue. I had learned not to. By noon, I had finished my chores, ironed his shirts, and even prepared his favorite lentil soup. But by 3 o'clock, he still hadn't returned my calls. That small, familiar anxiety began to crawl inside my chest. So I decided to surprise him at the office. I packed his lunch in a thermos and drove across town, only to find the office door locked, the sign flipped to closed. I called again. No answer. Something inside me went cold. I turned back home, trying to silence the thoughts forming in my head. And that's when I saw her, Sanaa, standing in my doorway, holding a broom like she was the lady of the house. For a few seconds, we both stood frozen, pretending everything was normal. Then she said, with a smile that could slice through glass, "Oh, Amina, you're early. Rashid didn't tell me you were coming." Her words hit me like a slap. "Didn't tell me you were coming?" I forced a laugh. "Why would my husband need to tell you when I'm coming to my own home?" She blinked unfazed. "Oh, of course. It's just that things have changed a little." Then she moved aside, motioning for me to enter, like she was welcoming me into her space. I stepped in. The first thing I noticed was the living room. The cushions were rearranged. The framed photo of Rashid and me was missing from the shelf, replaced by one of him and his brother. The carpet had been rolled up, the curtains replaced with gaudy silk ones that screamed new money. My stomach churned. I turned to her. "Where's Rashid?" "He's out," she said casually, picking up a tea tray from the table. "But he told me I could start settling in today. Didn't he tell you?" "Settling in?" "Yes," she smiled. "This house is ours now. Rashid transferred the deed last week. He said it's better this way. Easier for everyone." Her words blurred. My ears rang. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted. I stumbled toward the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. It was gone. Only a faint square of lighter paint remained, like a ghost of my old life. "Where are my things?" I whispered. "In the storage room," she said. Rashid thought it would be better to keep the old stuff out of sight. My throat burned. "Old stuff? That's my life, Sanaa. My home." She didn't flinch. "It's just business, Samina. Don't take it so personally." That night, Rashid came home late. I sat in the living room, the one that no longer smelled like mine. When he walked in, I asked quietly, "Is it true? Did you give her the house?" He didn't look at me. "It's not like that," he said. "Then explain it." He sighed, loosening his tie. Adnan got into some financial trouble. I helped him out, and since the property papers were in my name, you transferred my home to his wife. "Our asterisk home," he corrected. "You don't understand. It's temporary." I laughed bitterly. "Temporary? She's already redecorating." He rubbed his forehead. "You always overreact, Amina. It's family. Stop making this dramatic." My chest tightened. His tone wasn't offensive, it was dismissive, the way you talk to someone who no longer matters. That was the first night I realized. When someone starts treating your pain as inconvenience, they've already stopped loving you. I didn't sleep. I walked through every room in silence. The guest room, the kitchen, even the balcony where Rashid and I once drank tea under the winter sun. Each corner whispered of what used to be. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, I made a promise to myself. If they thought they could take everything from me, they'd soon learn I wasn't as fragile as I looked. Because this wasn't just about walls and bricks anymore. It was about dignity. And I was done letting mine be signed away. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The house felt foreign, like I was staying in someone else's guest room. The curtains were wrong. The air smelled like Sanaa's perfume, sharp, synthetic, and invasive. She was already awake, humming softly in the kitchen. I heard the clatter of dishes and the sizzling of oil. My kitchen. I sat at the dining table and watched her move, graceful, confident, as if she'd rehearsed this role for months. She glanced at me and smiled. "I made parathas. Rashid likes them crisp, not soft. You used to make them too thick." Her words were sugar wrapped around poison. I didn't respond. I just folded my hands together, trying to keep them from shaking. When Rashid came downstairs, freshly showered, his smile at her was automatic, too comfortable. He barely looked at me. "Morning," I said softly. He nodded, grabbing a paratha from her tray. "I have a meeting," he muttered, mouth full. "With Adnan?" I asked. He froze for a fraction of a second. A flicker I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been watching closely. Yes. There's some paperwork to finalize. What paperwork? I pressed. He exhaled. Amina, please. Not now. And just like that, he was gone. After he left, Sana leaned against the counter, stirring her tea slowly. You know, she said, without looking up, you should get some rest. You seem stressed. I smiled tightly. I'll rest when I have my home back. She laughed, a soft, pitying sound. You're still thinking that way? Amina, you should talk to Rashid. He'll explain everything. Maybe it's time for you to start over somewhere else. I turned toward her, every word I'd swallowed for years bubbling up in my chest. You've known him for what, 3 years? You think you can just walk in here and erase me? Her smile didn't falter. It's not about erasing. It's about replacing. I felt something snap inside me, but instead of screaming, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went silent, because silence, I've learned, terrifies people more than anger. That day, I drove to Adnan's office. I wanted answers, the kind that come with proof, not words. His secretary, a nervous young man, hesitated when I asked for the property documents. Sir said no one else should access those, he stammered. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Do I look like just anyone? He swallowed and, after a long pause, handed me a file. It was thick, bound with red string, labeled Transfer, House number 47, Garden Block. My heart pounded as I flipped through the pages. There it was, Rashid's signature. Bold, confident, on a transfer deed that clearly named Sana Adnan as the new owner. But there was something strange. On the last page, where my signature should have been because the house was jointly owned, someone had forged it. My name was written in looping, elegant handwriting that didn't belong to me. I felt dizzy. My breath came shallow. The office walls blurred. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was fraud. That evening, I waited for Rashid. When he walked in, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just placed the file on the table. What's this? He asked, pretending confusion. You tell me. He flipped through it, his jaw tightening. Where did you get this? Does it matter? You signed it. You forged my name. He slammed the file shut. Amina, it's not what you think. Then tell me what I should think. He rubbed his temples. Adnan needed collateral for a loan. I helped. You wouldn't have understood, and I didn't want to worry you. I let out a bitter laugh. So you stole from me to protect me? He stood up. You're making this ugly. This is temporary, I told you. Temporary? You forged my name, Rashid. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. He looked away, jaw clenched. You're overreacting again. There it was again. That word he used every time he wanted to make me small. I whispered, Do you even hear yourself anymore? He didn't answer. He just walked out, slamming the door behind him. Later that night, I found Sana sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone. Did you know? I asked quietly. She looked up, smirking. About the signature? Of course. The calmness in her tone made my skin crawl. You're proud of this? She shrugged. I'm just practical. Life rewards the clever, not the sentimental. I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. One day, You'll choke on that cleverness. She smiled. Maybe, but by then, I'll be sitting right here in your house. I turned away, fists clenched. That night, I packed a small bag and left. Not because I was giving up, but because I needed distance to think. Sometimes, to win a war, you have to step away from the battlefield. I spent the next week at my cousin's house. She was a lawyer, one of those sharp, relentless women who never lost an argument. When I told her everything, her face darkened. You have grounds, she said. Forging your signature is criminal. We can build a case. I hesitated. I don't want to destroy him, Nadia. I just want what's mine. She nodded. Then we'll start with that. Together, we began digging. She pulled property records, transaction logs, and bank statements. Every document told the same story. Rashid and Adnan had been shifting assets between their names for months. My house was just one of several temporary transfers. But the cruelest part? The loan they claimed Adnan needed didn't even exist. It was all fabricated, a paper trail built to hide the real transfer of ownership to Sanaa. It wasn't business. It was betrayal, dressed in formality. When I looked at the documents spread across the table, one realization cut deeper than any legal detail ever could. He hadn't just given her the house. He'd given her the power to humiliate me. And that, I decided, was something I could never forgive. I took a deep breath, closing the folder. If they think I'll walk away quietly, I said to Nadia, they've forgotten who I am. Nadia smiled faintly. Then remind them. That night, lying awake in the guest room, I thought of every year I'd spent building a life with Rashid. The laughter, the quiet evenings, the whispered prayers before sleep. None of it felt real anymore. But strangely, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Because betrayal, I realized, doesn't just shatter you, it reveals you. And the woman staring at the ceiling that night wasn't a victim anymore. She was someone who was about to fight back, not with anger, but with truth. The next morning, I went back home. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to look my betrayal in the eyes. When I opened the gate, I saw Rashid's car parked beside a new silver SUV. Sanaa's. I stood at the door for a moment listening. Laughter drifted from the living room. Rashid's deep, easy laugh. The same one that used to belong to me. I walked in quietly. Both of them froze. Sanaa recovered first. You're back early. I dropped my bag on the floor. This is still my home. Or, did you forget that part? Rashid's face hardened. Amina, please. Let's not do this. I looked at him, the man I once trusted more than anyone, and felt nothing but cold clarity. You forged my signature. You lied to me. You gave my house to her. What exactly do you expect me to do, Rashid? Smile. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was going to fix it, but you made it worse by involving lawyers. Oh, I made it worse? I laughed bitterly. You commit fraud, and I'm the problem because I didn't stay quiet? Sanaa stepped forward. Amina, maybe you should just... Don't. I cut her off sharply. Don't say another word. Her smile faltered. For the first time, she looked unsure. That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I locked myself in the master bedroom, my bedroom, and sat on the floor with every memory spinning inside my head like ghosts. There was a framed photo on the bedside table. our wedding day. Rashid's arm around me, my smile bright and foolish. I stared at it for a long time before setting it face down. Then I opened my phone and started recording. "My name is Amina," I said, my voice trembling but steady enough. "This is my story. If anything happens to me, this is proof." I laid out everything, the forged signature, the fake loan, the property transfer, even the emotional manipulation. I didn't know if anyone would ever see that video, but it made me feel powerful just to say it aloud. Because silence had been my prison. And now I was breaking out. Over the next few days, things escalated. Rashid became defensive, angry, and unpredictable. He stopped coming home some nights. Sanaa started acting as though she'd already won, bringing guests over, changing furniture, even talking about renovations. But I stayed calm, because Nadia and I had a plan. We filed a formal complaint for forgery and property fraud. Within a week, Rashid received a legal notice. The morning it arrived, he stormed into the kitchen, waving the papers. "What is this, Amina? You want to ruin me?" I met his eyes. "No. You ruined yourself. You think you can fight me? You have no proof." I smiled faintly. "You forged my signature, Rashid. That's proof enough. And you did it in your own handwriting." He froze, realizing too late that I wasn't bluffing. Nadia had managed to get a handwriting expert involved. I turned to leave, but then stopped at the doorway. "One more thing," I said quietly. "Next time you decide to betray someone, at least pick a woman who can forge better." He didn't reply, just stood there, defeated. But victory, I soon learned, doesn't come clean. The case dragged on for months. Court hearings, documents, lawyers, it all felt endless. And while I fought for my home, gossip began to spread. Neighbors whispered. Some pitied me. Some judged. She couldn't keep her husband, they said. Now she's dragging him to court. It hurt, not because their words were true, but because once again, a woman's pain had become public property. Still, I kept going, because this fight wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about self-respect. One afternoon, after a long hearing, I was sitting on a bench outside the courthouse when I saw Sanaa. She was dressed elegantly, her usual confidence slightly cracked. She sat beside me, uninvited. "You're wasting your time," she said. "Men like Rashid always find a way out." I looked at her, tired but unbroken. "Maybe, but I'll make sure he never finds peace." She laughed quietly. "You really hate me, don't you?" I shook my head. "No. I pity you, because when this is over, you'll realize you built your life on another woman's ashes, and nothing good grows there." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. 2 weeks later, the court gave its verdict. The property transfer was declared invalid. The forged documents were recognized as criminal evidence. Rashid and Adnan were charged. The house was legally restored to me. When I walked back through that gate, alone but victorious, I didn't feel joy. I felt peace. The kind of peace that comes after a storm, quiet, heavy, and cleansing. Inside, everything looked different. The furniture, the curtains, the faint traces of someone else's perfume. But I wasn't the same woman anymore either. I stood in the middle of the living room, closed my eyes, and whispered, "Alhamdulillah," because I had lost everything I thought mattered and found myself instead. That night, I took out my phone and opened the recording I'd made months ago. The woman on the screen looked fragile, scared. I smiled sadly at her. "You made it," I whispered to my reflection. "You really did." Then I deleted the video. I didn't need it anymore, because my truth didn't live in a file or a courtroom. It lived in me. And as I turned off the lights and walked upstairs, I realized something powerful. Betrayal doesn't destroy you. It introduces you to yourself. And sometimes that introduction is the beginning of everything.